Welcome to another fun-filled #Football Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Mr. Kim McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can find yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and KXRB on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions in the world of sports, during our 2 hours time for guests we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. Lakino will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given Lakina full powers to give you you fools to be able to be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago live in the 11 color or Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app, rather. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Chromebook, or your personal PC, or your Chromebook, just head up the Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
Yes, we will provide. I will say we will provide what you can do on Second. We'll provide anything that you can get on Second City Sports. And today is no exception. We're going to talk some Bulls and NBA. The in-season tournament starts tonight. So goody. Of course, Montez Sweat joins the Bears. Also, too, they're going to be gearing up for their game against the Saints. We'll have Mr. Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints. We tried to get him on a couple of years last year when they played, but of course, circumstances. We'll have him explain that too. He'll join us in a little bit later on in the second hour. Of course, Texas wins their first World Series. Of course, our girl Christine Manika will join us from KXRB for our NFL Week 9 pick'ems. Oh boy, the season's gone by quick, and a whole lot more. But first.
Sixth in pace, 107 possessions in the first game, 101 in the second game, 103 possessions in the third game on Monday night as Levine 4 rebounds a game, but Drummond's been a factor in his time on the floor here, late first, early second. Caruso using an Andre Drummond screen to find some... Well, that Brooklyn game, no one had a lead bigger than 7. Tonight, no one has had a lead bigger than 8. DeMar DeRozan. We see some. Well, it's Hardaway on the move. He just tied the game and dribbled into traffic there, and Drummond was able to steal it. Drummond's also always had quick hands defensively and been a good steals guy.
And get it to Timmy was exquisite.
Harder to put Chicago right back in front.
And those highlights were unfortunately, the Bulls, lost a tough one against the Mavs after they led for a little bit in the third quarter, but Dallas outscored the Bulls. They were hot from the 3-point range. So unfortunately, they didn't end up losing that game. They fall to 2-3. Sid, I mean, I'm hearing Bulls Twitter. You gotta love Bulls Twitter, right, folks? I mean, they get very antsy. They always make fun of the Bulls every chance they get. If you saw our buddies from CHGO, Matt Peck, he was actually losing because the Bulls, yes, they outscored the Mavs in the paint, but it was really the 3-point shooting that kind of killed them in the end. I know Kyrie didn't play that game on Wednesday, but unfortunately, it was a 3-point shooting by the Mavs. I mean, they're showing you why they're one. I think only 2 undefeated teams left in the NBA. Well, Boston. Well, yeah, I think they're like 3 of them left. I think them, Boston. I think Denver, of course. Well, I think Denver lost a couple of days ago. We'll talk about that in a second. But Sid, what do you think about that Mavs Bulls game?
Kyrie Irving did not show up on the injury report, but shows up on the bench not playing. Low management, you gotta love it. And thank you to Bally Sports Southwest for giving us those lovely highlights of the Chicago Bulls and the Dallas Mavericks. So, Lakina, as you mentioned, the 3-point shooting, of course, it was a decent percentage at 33% for the game. But as I said on Monday, this team is trying to find their identity. They're trying to find that balance of taking more 3-point shots instead of 2-point shots. I thought they did a good job of that in Monday's win against Indiana, which we'll discuss in a minute. But they uptick their 3-point attempts a little bit, but not by that much. But one thing that stuck out to me is the assists for the whole game as a team, 19. Let me repeat that again, 19 assists for the whole game. Lakina, you're not going to win many games in the NBA with just 19 total assists for the game. That's just not going to happen. And Patrick Williams, I don't want to beat up on the young man, but Lakina, he had an 0 for again. No points. 0 for 5 from 3-point range and 0 for 6 overall. He had 3 rebounds, but Lakina, like I said on Monday, I'll say it again, taking him out of the starting lineup will do wonders for the Bulls. Does it solve all their problems? No, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and look, Grant Williams, I think was, of course, a free agent signing from Boston. He was 7 from 9 from the 3-point range, tied a career high 25 points, and I think he was kind of like led the charge for the Bulls, along with Tim Hardaway Jr., who had 24 off the bench, who was 7 for 13 from 3. That's what really killed the Bulls in the end. And look, as far as P. Wills is concerned, like I've said in the last couple of games that we've done this, I think maybe sending him might be the best way to do it. I mean, right now, look, you were right there in the game with the Mavs. Well, of course, unfortunately, the 3-pointer kind of killed you in the end. 33-22, they outscored in the fourth quarter. So I think for me, it might be best to sit him at least for right now so we can get out of this funk that he's in. Put Torrey Craig. I know, Craig isn't, the most productive either, but you need somebody there to kind of, be sort of like that, that guy up in the front court. So they need something. They need something to give him a spark, and maybe Craig can do that.
Yeah, I know the numbers have been showing up for Torrey Craig so far this year, but as I told you in our last show, him and Alex Caruso are bringing that energy off the bench, and that's what you like to see from this Bulls team. Even though they have one of the deep benches in the league, in my opinion, Torrey Craig, if you give him more time, he'll bring more energy. I think he'll be a little bit more productive, definitely more than Patrick Williams. So I agree with you. Torrey Craig should be in the starting lineup immediately. Now, with the other free agent addition from the summer, Jalen Carter, I thought he had his best game as a Bull the other day, scoring 12 points, including shooting 5 for 7 overall, 2 of 2 from 3-point range. It looks like he's starting to find his way. Hopefully he can continue to do that. Also, too, you have Andre Drummond. I know he had 8 points and 3 rebounds, but as we said before, Lakina, the more playing time he gets coming off the bench, the more that this Bulls team will be especially from a defensive standpoint. Hopefully, Billy Donovan can use him more in the correct way, unlike last year when he didn't play him at all. In certain situations that he should have played, in my opinion, he didn't play. But so far this year, Andre Drummond has been very productive. You would like to see that from him. So from this Bulls team thus far, you need to find the balance within the flow of the offense. And I heard our buddy Ricky O'Donnell from SB Nation. He was on Sean and Maya earlier today, and he was talking about how the Bulls are trying to force feed Vucevic. And we've been saying this for the last couple of years. Use Nikolai Vucevic to within the flow of the offense. I know, and Ricky sort of disagreed this morning. You can go check it out, Sean and Maya in the morning from November 3rd. That was earlier today to view that whole that conversation in its entirety. But I'll still say this, Lakina, just like last year, get Vucevic involved within the offense. He doesn't have to take the shot every time, but when he gets the matchup in the paint, let him go to work. And when he doesn't have the position, let him pass the ball because he's one of the best big men in the league as far as passing is concerned. And once you get him involved with that, the offense will flow. Because, like I said before, in the first couple of games that I saw, you pump fake it, trying to force a 3-point shot. That's not moving the ball with any kind of flow within the offense. Take your time, move the ball around, and find the open man. That's how you get quality shots.
Yeah, and I think we've been saying for like the last 2 years, like you get Vooch involved, especially in the front. He can shoot from the outside and he can shoot from the inside. Let him kind of be the one that kind of guides you. Look, you'll get DeMar at the take the ball to the court. You'll give it to Kobe. Then you'll give Vooch, put him up an open look, whether it's from the perimeter or from the inside. So even the interior, even further in the interior. So this is kind of what the Bulls needed. They want to try to make some inroads in this in-season tournament. We'll talk more about that after the break. But I think for me, look, the Bulls are 2-3. You probably say it should be 3-1. I mean, they had a good showing against Indiana on Monday. Look, I know that Indiana, they kind of, they were undefeated at the time when the Bulls played them. And they kind of, they've had Indiana scored a lot of points. Well, they were on the tail end of a bad shooting night, but we'll talk about that in a second. But look, DeMar had 20, Vooch had 24 and 17 boards, and Zach had 23. They're like, I think they were like 9-5 or 10-5 or something like that when the three of them score at least 20 points. So if those three are kind of in their groove and scoring, they could, the Bulls can actually make can actually do something and actually surprise some folks. But P-Will had 9 points. So I'm sorry, that's not good enough. He needs to do that on a consistent basis. He needs to be scoring at least 14 or 15. If even more than that, the Bulls want to try at least get out of that funk in that 7 to 10 range.
Yeah, as we saw last Saturday night at Detroit when Zach LaVine goes off for 51 points and the rest of the guys on the roster just sit by and watch. That's not good. You're not going to win very many games. And as you pointed out with the stat sheet from last Monday night's win at Indiana, when you have balanced scoring, I guarantee you they had more than 19 team assists in that game. Once you share the ball, you have balanced scoring, everybody contributing, knowing their role, you'll win your share of basketball games. The only thing I didn't like about the Indiana game, Lakina, I don't know if you paid attention to it closely, but the Bulls had a couple of possessions where they almost threw the ball away. I think it was one possession I believe it was like under 30 seconds to go. DeMar DeRozan saved the ball for going out of bounds. I forgot who threw that ugly pass, but he saved the ball for going out of bounds. Indiana was still within striking distance at the time of trying to tie the game, but I know it's early in the season, but with a veteran team like the Bulls have, you can't afford to make dumb mistakes down the stretch. They got away with it against Indiana on Monday, but you cannot do that against better teams.
No, you saw that. We saw it a couple of times in Dallas on Wednesday. So, we'll see. Look, like I said, they have the in-season tournament starting tonight. We'll talk more about that. They play the Nets. So we'll talk more about that here after the break. We'll talk about the rest of the NBA too. Some good performances. A little bit of everything is old is new again from LeBron. Clay had a nice game winner, and Wemby, I think it looks like he may be giving the Suns nightmares and a whole lot more. Like McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports on Chicago, college football. We'll always talk some college football too. Week 11 and a whole lot more. Keenan McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports on Chicago. More NBA talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, No thanks. Not my thing.
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
And welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. You find me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter. X and Q is going again, the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. We have less than 85 minutes left for this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us, you can always hit up Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago's YouTube page. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, so let's start off this past week in the NBA. We'll start with yesterday as the Spurs win 2 in a row against the Suns. We'll get to the comeback on Wednesday, but the 131-121 win. They kind of took the lead and never looked back. I'm talking about the Spurs. Victor Wembanyama had 38 points and 10 boards. And I think he's starting to kind of find his groove a little bit. I think that's a really good showing by him. And he's also the first teenager to score that many points. So unfortunately, we'll get to the Suns in a second. But Keldon Johnson, only had 7 points, but he was kind of like, I'm talking about Wemby was kind of like a one man show. He kind of like led the way for the Spurs.
I'm not going to say that he's going to be the next Shaquille O'Neal or the next Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or the next Will Chamberlain. I'm not trying to no pun intended. I'm not trying to piss on a young man, but he's going to be a problem once he develops his game fully. Because yes, he's the tallest player out there, but he has small forward / shooting guard skills, and once that's properly developed over the next couple of years, he's really going to take off like I believe that he will. Like you saw that in the first couple of years of Giannis Antetokounmpo's career, he was, he had the raw talent, but he just had to be developed. And you see what he's looking like right now. So I see Victor Wembanyama as that type of player in the next 2 or 3 years. But as of right now, just like most young players, he's playing off talent. He's taking advantage of it. Thank goodness for him. And I thought personally that Phoenix had enough depth on their front line to at least compete with a player like that. But last night, Victor said no, and the Spurs took advantage of that. And like you said, they swept the 2-game series in Phoenix this week. I don't know why the NBA scheduled it like that, but I thought we was done with that whole thing a few years ago. But I digress. But the Spurs, do I see them as a playoff team? No, because they don't have enough talent around Mr. Wembanyama, but I think they could, in air quotes, flirt around with the play-in tournament like a couple of years ago. But I think Victor Wembanyama is really going to be a problem on the defensive end, because even though I don't think he's going to block a lot of shots, but he's going to alter a lot of shots. He's really going to change how opponents run the offense.
Well, yeah, no Bradley Beal either. So you can tell that they miss him. I think he probably would have been able to slow down Wemby, but I think that's really kind of what it is. But Phoenix, they're gonna, they're starting to lose their patience over there. So we'll see what happens with that. Orlando edged out Utah 115-113. New Orleans beat Detroit 125-116. 114-99. The Sixers over the Toronto Raptors. Going into Wednesday's matchups, you got the Lakers and the Clippers. I saw a lot of this game after the Bulls game was over.
It was nice to see healthy bodies for both teams on the court. Yay!
130-125 in overtime. LeBron had 35 points, and LeBron kind of showing you that, look, he still got a little bit. Yeah, okay, yeah, he's older and might have a lot of wear and tear. But, look, his 81st 30-plus point games is turning 35 years old. That passes Carmelo for the most by any player after turning 35 in the NBA. He also picked up his 81st 30-point game since and also that okay, yeah. And look, I'm sure he'll probably have to take some load management, games off probably later in the season, but he wants to kind of give the Lakers a little bit of kind of like a cushion, and a nice show in there for them. And it was actually pretty entertaining because usually it's kind of like, I know because of injuries, like I said, guys, taking games off, was a little bit of load management, but we haven't seen James Harden yet. We'll get to that in a second, but yeah, this was actually a pretty entertaining game.
Yes, as I mentioned, stars healthy all over the court. I know ESPN was happy. Of course, I'm sure they wanted James Harden in there, but he's not ready to play just yet. He'll be wearing jersey number 1 for the Clippers, by the way, for those that are interested. But lost in the sauce and all this, looking at Anthony Davis, 27 points and 10 rebounds. You would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive on the offensive end. It was a start on Wednesday. He helped out LeBron. And hopefully he can continue to have more games like this on a consistent basis. Inconsistency has been his problem. I'm talking about Anthony Davis on the offensive end for the Lakers. Hopefully he can keep that up. Also lost in the sauce on the flip side, looking up for the Clippers. Besides Paul George scoring 35, Kawhi scoring 38. Russell Westbrook, 24 points, 3 of 6 shooting from downtown. When's the last time you've seen that statistic when he shot above 50%, above 40% from downtown? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen that. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think this might be, they play a few more times, too, before the year is out. So, well, the calendar year, I should say, is out. So, we're going to be some entertaining games. Who knows? Next time we'll probably see Harden out there. So, we'll see what happens. Warriors edge out the Kings. It was a very entertaining game. I got a chance to listen to this game on my phone. And Klay Thompson's go-ahead jumper with, I think it was about a second left still, but they were able to beat the Kings 121-101. Very entertaining game from as it usually has been, especially in within the last year between these two teams.
Yes, we talked about Sacramento on our last show with missing De'Aaron Fox because of that bad ankle, but they battle back hard. But as we talked about with the Warriors, they have those veterans like Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, who you mentioned, hit the game winner. They know what to do in pressure situations. They've been there before. They know how to execute. And it's just another example by a veteran team that knows what to do in those types of situations. So it's not a surprise that the Warriors came out with a win.
Yep. Utah beat Memphis, I should say, 133-109.
They are struggling without Steven Adams. We know about John Moran.
Yeah,
he will be back, but Steven Adams will not be back.
Yeah, that's going to be a big struggle for them, especially in the inside. And, Colin Sexton really had took it to the tear there, took it to the whole mini for 25 points, 23 points, I should say. So a nice balance scoring for Utah. In that game, Minnesota gave Denver their first loss this season, 110-89. Now, we've been saying that Minnesota could be the team that takes that next step. And look, they were able to kind of pull off what would say a mild upset, I should say. Anthony Edwards had 24. Karl Anthony Towns had 21. So, when those two get going, I think, look, Minnesota's going to give some teams some fist, especially that very tough Western Conference.
Yes, this was a rematch of last spring's first round Western Conference playoff matchup. Of course, the now defending champion Nuggets eliminated Minnesota in 5 games. As I said before, I'll say it again, Karl Anthony Towns, who should be in the Bulls uniform, but that's another issue. But if Karl Anthony Towns stays healthy, this Minnesota team can improve from last year being in the play-in tournament to not being in that play-in tournament. But Karl Anthony Towns must stay healthy.
Yes, and that's really going to be the key if Minnesota wants to take that next step. Houston beat Charlotte. New Orleans, they're kind of quietly, New Orleans sort of like, they edge out OKC 110-106. And Cleveland, I think Cleveland needed this game, very, essentially, 95-85, 89, I should say, over the Knicks. And, Donovan Mitchell had 30 points leading the way for them. And, but it was Julius Randle. I mean, he kind of looked sort of like, I don't know what happened. He only had 6 points, 0-6 from the 3-point range. So what's going on with Julius Randle?
Hopefully, it's just one of those nights. If you're Randle, I know it's early in the season, you should come out of the gates running. But hopefully, it's just one of those nights. The Knicks are expected to do good things this year. I know they beat the Cavs last year in the playoffs. This was a rematch from last year's first round playoff series. But on the flip side for Cleveland, Donovan Mitchell with 30 points, as you mentioned. We mentioned this a couple years ago before they traded for him, that the Cavs needed someone to go get them a basket in the later stages of the game. Donovan Mitchell is that guy. He proved it once again on Wednesday.
Yeah, this is actually a revenge because the Knicks actually beat the Cleveland the day before, 109-91, where Randall had 19 leading the way. So it might just been one of those games. So we'll see what happens. Now going back to that Tuesday game, San Antonio came back for, I believe they were like 18 down against Phoenix, and they were able to come back, especially late in the third, especially going into the fourth quarter. Keldon Johnson had 27 points in the go-ahead basket. I mean, look, they're two of the wins have been against Phoenix, so I don't know if you want to kind of say that this is going to be like the first three of the three wins have been against Phoenix. Talk about San Antonio, so I'm wondering, like, do you want to say that this could be a big role here? But Phoenix has been struggling early on this season. You thought that maybe. I know Nick Nurse been, Frank Bullock has been playing around with lineups and such, but Nurkic, was only 4 for 10 from the field. He only had 12 points. No Bradley Beal. I know that first game, they didn't have a book, so he came back for that Wednesday game. But Phoenix, should we be worried about Phoenix, especially this early in the season?
Yes, only because they don't have any healthy guys. As you mentioned, Bradley Beal hasn't played yet this year. Devin Booker missed a couple of games. So it's been Kevin Durant and everybody else. And I know it's a long 6-month journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint, but you got to have guys healthy so you can get used to it. So they can get used to one another, to play within themselves, play within the scheme that you want to run. Right now, Phoenix they're not experiencing that. So, but you cannot fall too far down the barrel that you had to work extra hard just to climb yourself out of. They need to get healthy quick.
Yeah, that's not good, especially with so much expectations, this season coming up for the Spurs. So we literally, basically, got rid of, a lot of your depth for, Bradley Beal. Now he hasn't been playing the last few games, so we'll see what happens with that. Now go back to Wednesday for a second. Boston beat Indiana 155-104. No, folks, that's not a typo. Tatum had 30 points. I think they were about almost 58% from three, and that kind of took the time there. And look, Indiana just wouldn't have an answer for them.
Yeah, so much for losing to the Bulls 2 nights before.
Just edgy about the Bulls, so that was a pretty interesting score there. But yeah, that really does happen sometimes in the NBA. Now going into Monday. Look, the Lakers, they're getting a little bit of a road going. They started off by beating the Magic. Denver beat Utah. OKC beat Detroit. Golden State, no trouble with the Pelicans. Milwaukee, they beat Miami. Now, Miami, that's another team that I'm kind of starting to wonder about early on. And I know that, they're 1-4, and I know, Jimmy Butler was not very happy when Dame ended up going to Milwaukee and not Phoenix. Not Miami, I should say. And they've been struggling, and you wonder, hope that he can figure it out.
As I said before the season started, let's hope that's not the issue. But if it is, how quickly can this roster get over the fact that they couldn't get Damian Lillard, and he's not coming to save you anytime soon? So the hope and the wish is gone. You got to get out there and play basketball. Excuse me. And let's not forget to losing Max Struss and Gabe Vincent will be huge losses for this team, and as this new year starts. So they got to overcompensate those 2 losses as well.
Anything else caught your eye in the NBA this week?
I want to ask you a quick question before we move on to college basketball. Are you listening to some LA sports radio for the last 48 hours? There are some hosts or pundits that are concerned that LeBron James is playing too many minutes this year. They had to pull it out against Orlando the other night. Of course, LeBron James played 42 minutes in their overtime win on Wednesday against the Clippers. Are you starting to worry about his minutes?
I think
or is it too soon?
I think it's too soon. I think we know that he'll probably do a little management thing like in January after the holidays, like he usually does. So I think he knows
going on vacation.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think he would know how his body reacts. I know he knows. And look, he said in the interviews he knows that he can't play as many minutes as he used to. He can't do it for too many. Sort of for too long. Take a in between games. So yeah, I'm not worried about LeBron just yet. Like I said, LeBron knows what he's doing. I'm not gonna. Sit here. They'll play again until tomorrow, Saturday. So I'm not. Look, we'll see what happens. I know that's going to be the thing. Darvin Ham's got to. He and Darvin Ham will have to figure that out. But I'm not too worried right now. I mean, look, like I said, he would know his body more than anyone else, any of us. So I think, look, let's let him decide what he wants to do. I'm sure he'll take his games off when he can.
All right, the schedule for tonight for the NBA are as follows: as the in-season tournament, the inaugural in-season tournament for the National Basketball Association premieres. Of course, the Bulls will host the Brooklyn Nets at the United Center tonight at 7 o'clock. You can watch that game locally here on NBC Sports Chicago. Those of you in the tri-state area on the Yes Network, featuring Chicago's very own Sarah Kustok and everybody else in NBA League Pass. The rest of the schedule looks like this for tonight for the in-season tournament schedule. Cleveland's at Indiana. The first game of that doubleheader on ESPN will feature the New York Knicks and the Milwaukee Bucks at 6:30. Washington will face Miami. Golden State will visit OKC, the Oklahoma City Thunder. The nightcap of that ESPN Friday night doubleheader will feature Dallas at Denver. That should be a great one. And, of course, you have the Memphis Grizzlies and the Portland Trail Blazers. That's your inaugural schedule for the in-season tournament from the NBA starting tonight.
Yeah, for those of you, basically after these games are played, the top 8 will go to Vegas and they'll play a tournament starting December 3rd. And, then the other champion will be crowned on Friday the 5th. No, wait, not Friday, but, that Friday, of that week. So, that's going to be interesting to see how this goes. But this is going to be a little hilarious. But going to Saturday tomorrow, Phoenix and Philadelphia. That should be a fun one at high noon. Charlotte and Indiana. The Lakers, speaking of LeBron, we'll see if he does play tomorrow against the Magic. Atlanta and the Pelicans. Boston and Brooklyn. Sacramento and Houston. Utah and Minnesota. And the Bulls start their road trip as they face Denver to defend the reigning champs on NBA TV at 8 o'clock. Hopefully they won't don't embarrass themselves too much.
Yeah, because the Bulls will be in the second of a back-to-back. Of course, we mentioned they play Brooklyn tonight here in Chicago for the in-season tournament. Your Sunday schedule looks like this. Phoenix will continue their East Coast road trip. They'll visit Detroit. The Raptors will face the San Antonio Spurs and Victor Wembanyama. The Golden State Warriors will visit the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Charlotte Hornets will pay a visit to Dallas to face the Mavericks. And the Grizzlies will play a back-to-back situation over the weekend, and they'll play the Portland Trail Blazers in the Rose City once again.
Yeah, that should be a fun one. And that is our schedule for this weekend in NBA. Ashley, Second City Sports on Sports Social Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you as we're wrapping up the first hour here. Now, Sid, the first playoff college football playoff standings were unveiled on Tuesday. So, do you know who is the top 4? Who are the top 4, I should say?
I'm not on Google, so I'm gonna take a great guess. Michigan.
Nope, you're in the right conference, but wrong team. It's actually Ohio State.
All right.
Yeah, it's actually Ohio State. Ohio State is the team, and I said on Twitter, I'm going to say it here. I'm not too mad about that. I mean, look, the Ohio State, they played a good schedule. They beat Notre Dame. Just as on Notre Dame, they beat Penn State. So yeah, they had the schedule right now. So I'm not I said, look, a lot of this is going to change as it goes on. So in the next month, so not too, don't be too upset for all you Michigan fans and other, and Georgia fans. Georgia's number 2. That's your number 2 team, and number 3 is the aforementioned Michigan. And number 4 is Florida State, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss is your top 10. So not big surprise. So what do you think? Are you surprised by the top 10 so far?
Not really, but I think it's going to come down to that fourth and final spot. And you mentioned Florida State is holding it down right now. But you mentioned with Oklahoma, I think they may be out. I think Texas still has a shot. And there's a couple of teams you mentioned from the Pac-12. Washington, they may sneak in. I think Oregon is going to give it a run as well. So you got about 4 or 5 teams for that last spot. I don't think Florida State is going to finish there, but it's going to be a fight to the finish. I'll tell you that right now.
It's going to get very interesting because, especially as like I said, we're in the last few weeks of the season, so this is going to be really going to be the we'll talk about that in a second. Right now, actually, as we go into this weekend's schedule, Duke beat Wake Forest. Of course, this is from yesterday. Texas Tech edged TCU. Kent State beat Akron beats Kent State. I should say that was a good game there. Now going into this Saturday's games tomorrow, you got Ohio State and Rutgers facing each other on CBS. The big noon Saturday game in the Big 12, you got number 23 K-State, who are actually tied with Texas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State for the tops in the Big 12 at 11 a.m. on Fox.
Let's see if Texas defense can step up big. They're favored by 3.5 points at home in the Longhorn State. Kansas State is great this year. You mentioned 6-2 overall, tied with Texas 4-1 in the Big 12 lead. But for Texas, I'm looking for their defense to step up, and offensively, Jonathan Brooks, I think, is going to have another great game running the ball for Texas.
This is going to get very interesting to see what happens with that, because I really think that Texas, they need to kind of try to look. They want to be right there. Look, they're still right there in the thick of it. So we'll see what happens with it. Now, do you think Rutgers has a shot against Ohio State tomorrow? They're 6-2 as well.
Call me crazy, but no.
All right. And on that note, Texas A&M against Ole Miss on ESPN. Notre Dame against Clemson on ABC at 11 a.m.
I think Dabo Swinney is going to be cursing his own team out, besides cursing out callers on his radio show early this week. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we're just see what the Clemson. I know they've had a lot of injuries, especially on that D line for Clemson. So that's really been an issue for them. So we'll see if they can keep it close at the very least against Notre Dame. Tennessee going out of conference as they host Jim Moore's UConn Huskies. Nebraska Cornhuskers, they're kind of heating it up a little bit, and especially in the Big Ten West, they face Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Indiana, Arkansas, and Florida. Wisconsin will be on the Big Ten Network. Nebraska and Michigan State will be on FS1, and Arkansas and Florida will be on ESPN2. North Carolina will get out of conference, a little bit of a breather there. They host Campbell. That'll be on the ACC Network. Arizona State will face Utah. They'll try to bounce back from that loss to Oregon, just getting thrashed by Oregon. The CW Network game, Georgia Tech coming off a little bit of a hot streak lately. They face Virginia at 1:00 on WGN here in Chicago. The CW Network, local listings there. Air Force will try to stay undefeated against Army. Our buddy Randy Cross will have the call of that game on CBS Sports Network at 1:30. Going into this afternoon games. The Fighting Mike Berman is from NBC Sports Chicago, our buddy here, as we call him here. The Mizzou will face Georgia on CBS at 2:30. Do you think Mizzou has a chance in an upset? They were off last week.
I would say yes, dating back to last year where they almost pulled out the upset, but they were at home on top of Missouri. But this time they're on the road at Georgia. I don't think they have a shot. They're a good team, but I don't think, even though this is not Georgia's best squad on paper, I don't see it. I hope they keep it close on top of Missouri, but I think Georgia will be have a little bit more just to handle the Tigers.
Could be very interesting. We'll see how the Tigers look, especially coming off a bye. Florida State and Pittsburgh on ESPN. This will be the last Bedlam series for a while anyway. You got Oklahoma and Oklahoma State at 2:30 on ABC. Like I said, Oklahoma State's been very quietly, they're quietly 6-2, they're 4-1. I think if you're Mike Gundy, you're kind of like, oh, you don't mind being kind of like you're sort of like the quiet underdog here. You got Dylan Gabriel, of course, for Oklahoma. You kind of think he probably could be like the second tier guy in the Heisman race. For those of you who have not seen Oklahoma State play, Alabama, who's probably, not a bad quarterback, but it's really been Ollie Gordon II, the sophomore running back. He's been, killing it in the rush. I mean, he's one of the top rushing guys. I think he's in the top 5 in FBS and rushing. So this should be very interesting. Hopefully, the last one for a while. So we'll see if they can kind of, get things going and make it interesting down there in Stillwater.
And if you're Oklahoma State, you could possibly knock out Oklahoma in that college football playoff with the upset win. I think they have a shot. They're at home.
Yes, should be interesting. Penn State and Maryland, they almost lost a close one against Indiana. That'll be on Fox at 2:30. Vodtech and Louisville on ACC Network. Tulane and East Carolina on ESPNU. You got Illinois and Minnesota on BTN at 2:30.
Yeah, let's go Illini.
That's all you got. That's all he has.
That's all I got.
Yeah, streaming on Peacock at the same time. You got Northwestern hosting Iowa. All right.
Yeah.
I know Northwestern's been playing pretty good. They're 4-4, but okay.
I know.
All right.
Iowa should handle them. They're favored by 5.5 in Evanston.
Yeah, there should be I think we'll see. California and Oregon. Oregon, on the Pac-12 network at 4:30. Kansas and Iowa State. Kansas coming off that big win against Oklahoma, and Iowa State, they're tied in that that same tie for the Big 12 lead. So they're kind of been quietly heating up. That is at 6 o'clock on ESPN.
Okay, at 6:30 on NBC. We'll have Purdue at 2-6 traveling to the Big House to face the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan checks in at 8-0, 5-0 in the Big Ten. Michigan should not have a problem with Purdue. As J.J. McCarthy and crew look to improve to 9-0, Jim Harbaugh's name is in the news. We won't get into that. I think it's a bunch of nonsense, me personally, but Michigan should be focused to beat Purdue. Also at the same time at 6:30 on ABC, number 5 Washington will travel to L.A. to face number 20 USC. Lakina, I think that ship is sinking fast for the USC Trojans. They're out of the national championship picture. Washington, they're 8-0, 5-0 in the Pac-12. I think Michael Penix Jr. will come in there and handle USC.
Yeah, I mean, he's been under the weather the last couple weeks. He actually is playing better for all reports. He actually is looking better. He's feeling better. So he might not have any trouble against he's due for it, especially after struggling the last couple of weeks. So he might this will be a high scoring affair, but I think Washington will be able to handle USC pretty handily. I'm just saying. Kentucky and Mississippi State on the SEC Network, SMU and Rice on ESPNU. You got LSU against Alabama on the prime time on CBS. Do you think LSU has a shot?
I think they do, but they must play disciplined football. I know Alabama, as I said earlier about Georgia, they're not the best team on paper, but Jalen Monroe has he's been a solid quarterback for Nick Saban's crew in Alabama over the last few weeks, not turning the ball over, making the plays when he has to. But it's all about the Alabama defense. We'll see what they'll do against LSU. Brian Kelly is going to have a strong game plan against the Alabama defense. I
agree. It'll be just
Alabama is favored by 3.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So that'll be interesting there. Miami and NC State on the ACC Network. Wazoo, they've lost the last couple of games. They'll try to bounce back against Tampa on the Pac-12 Network. They host that. Down there in Pullman, Oregon State and Colorado at 9 o'clock. That's the capper on ESPN.
Let's go prime time! Yay!
All right, Oregon State has a really solid defense, so Shador Sanders might have a hard time. We'll see. Boise State and Fresno State and UCLA and Arizona. Should UCLA be on upset alert?
I'm going to say no.
All right, and that's
not scheduled for. But I'll say no.
Right, yeah, and that is your schedule for this weekend and college football. As we're going into, the home stretch, the last few weeks of the season, so this should be a lot of fun.
All right, stay tuned for more sports and more fun as Second City Sports continues with Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints podcast and our girl Christine the Queen Manika. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared.
Do you know that you're in my lane?
No, not at all.
Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it! Yes, sir!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Well, welcome. How surprised are you that you're here right now? How do you feel about this landing spot?
I'm grateful, blessed, happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here, ready to get to work.
Obviously, you're playing on the last year of your deal. Have you spoken with the Bears at all about a potential contract extension yet?
I'm sure my agents and them are talking about something, but I haven't. I'm not really in it right now. Just ready to get to work. Yeah, I mean, it's thought about. Obviously, a player always wants to have security playing the sport that we playing, but I mean, I'm sure everything will work itself out. Yeah, I'm just taking it one day at a time. Everything is happening kind of fast right now. Just waiting for it to slow down and we hit the ground running when we get there.
And that is new Bear Montez Sweat. As I can see, sports on Sports Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Welcome to hour number 2. As we're waiting for our buddy Ross Jackson, who will join us in a few minutes. But when this trade went down, Sid, I kind of felt like, okay, look, when the Bears played the Commanders on Thursday night a few weeks ago, we mentioned him a little bit, but of course, Chase Young was kind of like the big name in that front four for the Commanders. And Sweat, remember, apparently there was also Atlanta was also interested in getting him. Remember, he's from Atlanta, just outside Atlanta. So, the fact that I didn't mind them getting Sweat, it's just that to me, you could have gotten him, in free agency, or you still got a lot of cap money, especially for especially such a high second round pick, in the top 5 in the second round. He's only 27. He hasn't had any injuries. You can probably say he's kind of like a mid-tier guy in the NFL among, tackles, but, or defensive, I should say, but I don't know. So what do you think about the trade itself?
I didn't mind the Bears making this move. Of course, you'll like to sign him at some point right now or during the off season. That's why you made this move. It's not so much about this year, but it's about next year and a couple years ahead. going forward with this Bears team. As we said before the season started, many of you guys, not saying us, but many of you guys listening and watching out there had them sneaking into the playoffs. I had them at 7 or 8 wins, and as you will know, it doesn't have to take a genius to know that does not get into the playoffs with the 17-game schedule. But with that being said, this is a move made for next year. If you GM Ryan Poles, obviously you still have more work to do. You got to have to put better talent around Mr. Montez Sweat, because if you expect him to do this by himself, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and I kind of think, if you heard the press, I know he was overwhelmed. I know, look, you're going from one city to another, and you're kind of like, you're sort of discombobulated, where you're going. But I didn't like his answer when he said, oh, I'll let the agents figure that out. To me, that sounds like, what, I don't know if this might be a rental. I know some people say, well, they can franchise him. Well, look, his people can say, what, F your franchise tag, and not play. So, for me, I kind of feel like, okay, I'll feel a little bit better if when he signs a deal, the sooner the better. But if not, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, you trade your second rounder. Now, I know people want to compare this to when Chase Young went to the 49ers, but remember, there were a lot of physicals. We know he's coming back from surgeries and stuff. So yeah, that's why the 49ers were able to get him to go for a 6th rounder. That was just kind of like how it is. But I think for me, it's just kind of feel like, you know what? I don't know. But again, look, I'm sure he'll be very, very productive for the Bears. But it just doesn't seem like, again, this might be one of those deals where you're kind of like, okay, yeah, you're left kind of scratching your head, I think. But I don't know.
Let's hope that it works out if you're a Bears fan. I think he's excited to be here. Like you said, Lakina, everything has been overwhelming for him for the past 24 to 48 hours. I actually kind of like this answer. Let my agents handle that. Your job as a player is to worry about to go play football. As the great former GM Ozzie Newsome, who should be in the Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame, by the way, he said that try winning a game in the National Football League with no distractions. But if you have one or more distractions, that's going to be tough for you. Like Montez said, let his agents handle that. Of course you want to be here, but let my agents worry about the numbers and all that. I got a job to do, and that's go play football.
Well,
and let the rest of the stuff work out.
Yeah, like, all right. Like I said, I'll believe it when he actually signs the contract, we get an extension. So, excuse me, we'll see what happens with there as we're still waiting for Buddy Ross. But yeah, let's talk about this game for a second. This Saints game. Well, you know what? Let's recap the Steelers and the Titans from Thursday Night Football. 2016 was the final there. Pittsburgh beat the Titans, and Pittsburgh's been doing pretty good without running the ball. With running the ball, I mean, Jalen Warren had 88 rushing yards. Kenny Pickett, threw for a TD, and it was really their defense that kind of kept Will Levis at bay. He was sacked 4 times, got an interception that helped clinch the game there. And look, don't look now, but I think the Steelers are 5-3. They're kind of right in the thick of it in the AFC North.
Yes, they learned their lesson sort of from last Sunday's loss against Jacksonville, despite the Kenny Pickett injury. The Steelers' defense is still good. Don't forget about T.J. Watt, and don't forget about Manika Fitzpatrick. I know he's been injured, but they still have a young, hungry defense. But George Pickett's on the flip side with the wide receivers, and Deontay Johnson, who had a great game last night. They still are playmakers, and once Kenny Pickett gets fully healthy, gets right, there are going to be dangers. The only concern that I have for the Pittsburgh Steelers is running the football with consistency. They haven't had that so far this year.
That's really going to be the thing, especially if they want to try to house, like I said, not just for the not just for the division, but for also too for one of the wild card spots, especially. So yeah, that might be interesting to see what happens there. Just like I say, Sports on Sports, I got Keenan McGee, Cindy Brown with you as we wait. It'll be Ross Jackson will be joining us in about 4 more minutes. So anything else kind of caught your eye this week or in the NFL, or are the NFL trades that kind of piqued your interests?
Yeah, Joshua Dobbs going from Arizona to Minnesota. I know rumor has it that Kyler Murray is available to play he will be available to play in the next couple of weeks. For those of you that may have forgotten, he injured he tore his ACL toward the end of last season, and so it's going to be close to a full year since he's played football. So I want to see what Arizona does here. Will he be traded? during this offseason. If he looks healthy enough between now and at the end of the season, we shall see. Now, on the flip side for Minnesota, they get a good young player in Josh Dobbs, and they're 4-4 right in the thick of hopefully for them, a playoff run. Do you think he'll lead them to the playoffs? I think he'll do enough just to stay in the lead, but that NFC wild card jam is going to be jam-packed. I don't know if Minnesota's going to make it out of there. I know Justin Jefferson's supposed to be back within the next week or two, but that defense for Minnesota, even though it's played better than what people expected the last few weeks, I don't know if that's going to sustain itself. I think Josh Dobbs will do some things, but I don't know it's going to be enough for Minnesota to qualify for the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I kind of think that, look, you need someone that can kind of be serviceable. And look, Jaron Hall, look, we don't know. We'll see him this week. So, but having a serviceable backup like Dobbs, with us, we saw what he did in Arizona, kind of, almost like got him a couple more wins and they were better than their record. But we know that Arizona's tanking. This might be a big shot, perhaps make the playoffs interesting. There is going to be a little bit of a long jam, but I think it's the Minnesota schedule is stuff so where they can perhaps maybe make a good a push. I'm not going to say they're going to get it, but they may be able to kind of get at least push for one of those last couple wild card spots.
Yeah, and also too, just taking a look at that NFC North division. Of course, we know about the Bears; they're bringing up the rear. I know Detroit is leading the division right now, but Green Bay, like I said, we'll give our picks out in the next segment with our girl Christine, the Queen Manika. But you would think the Packers would have a chance to sort of get back into things. They got an easy opponent with the Rams this week. I know Matthew Stafford probably will not play. I know he got injured last week and a loss at Dallas, but Green Bay's been struggling all year, especially with scoring in the first half. Now they can get it together in the second half and make things interesting, but scoring in the first half has been a problem for them all.
Yeah, it really has, and like I said, I think scoring will probably be an issue for them today. So it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna get interesting to see what they do. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. As we got our buddy is with us. Introduce him for us. Easy for me to say, please.
He's a good dear friend of ours. He's the host of the Locked On Saints podcast, Mr. Ross Jackson. You can find Locked On Saints podcast wherever you get your podcast, and you can watch him right here on YouTube. Just type in Locked On Saints on your search engine box right here on YouTube. Let's bring him in. Look here, we haven't had him on since the Bears lost to the Saints in the playoffs a couple of years ago. It's nice to see his lovely face again. Yeah. Mr. Ross Jackson, ladies and gentlemen. Ross,
Thank you. Applause to you as well. I appreciate y'all so much for keeping me in mind. I know we weren't able to link up. We haven't been able to link up since that playoff game, so it meant a lot that y'all came back here.
Well, yeah. Well, the last time was just circumstances beyond your control. So we forgive you for that, Ross. But going into this game, I mean, the Saints have actually been pretty solid. They're kind of starting to get it going. Derek Carr seems to be with that with the injury, kind of find his groove a little bit. Where do you see the Saints in this game especially?
Yeah, I think, right now what it is basically is that they have to prove that what they found against the Indianapolis Colts wasn't a mirage like it was against the New England Patriots. It's a little bit weird to say that a team comes out with a 38-27 win that kind of goes back and forth, and they had to manage some adversity and stuff like that. And then you feel better about them than you did when they had the 34-0 win against the New England Patriots. But really, that's kind of where the New Orleans Saints are right now. And I think it's a good place to be. I mean, they managed adversity, they produced in the red zone, they converted on third downs. Those are the things that they all kind of struggled to do early on throughout the season. So now this Bears game becomes whether or not it becomes their opportunity to prove whether or not that was more than just a one game situation and that they can string together a successful brand of football moving forward.
Let's talk about your wide receivers. Of course, you have Michael Thomas, who's trying to find his footing after being injured the last couple of years. Of course, you have Chris Olave. But talk about Rashid Shaheed. He's really having a breakout season for you guys.
Yeah, he's remarkable. And look, when you talk about Rashid Shaheed, you got to talk about speed, not just because it rhymes, but because it's true and all that. But I do think that there's a lot more to his game too. But his speed kind of sets everything up, right? Like his ability to be that vertical Tyreek Hill style threat. And people are going to look at me sideways for using that name. But when you think about it, he's got 4 40-plus yard plays already this season, trailing only Tyreek Hill, who's got 6. He's got 10 since he came into the league last year, and that trails Tyreek Hill, who's got 14. And so, he really is in that class of some pretty incredible players, Jalen Waddles, all the others of the world there. But I think that beyond just what he can do 40, 50, 60 yards downfield. He's one of these guys that can use that vertical stem to be able to lure some unsuspecting defensive backs into a sense of comfort. Take away the deep ball and you can't do anything. That's not really true. He's one of those guys that, he's developed as a route runner. He understands how to find space in zones. He does a really good job working and being available for his quarterback whenever the quarterback needs to extend plays. We saw it during his rookie season. It's continued this year. So he's been outstanding. Last week he had 3 catches for 153 yards and a touchdown, a Randy Moss-like stat line there. But under normal circumstances, it's not out of the ordinary to see him come down in a game where he's got, 5 catches for some 60 or 70 yards because he's helping to move the chains.
Let's stay in that offense, talk about Alvin Kamara. He's starting to kind of find his groove a little bit. The last couple of games is coming back from. Got a little bit of trouble over the offseason after he served his suspension. Now he's starting to find his groove. The Bears, run defenses leaves a lot to be desired. So I'm sure, do you think he could have big numbers against them on Sunday?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because you look at the Bears and they're like number 1 in the NFL when it comes to yards per attempt allowed at only 3.3, but they also don't get run against very often. I think because of the amount of success that they give up in the passing game. So a lot of teams will come in and go, okay, well, let's just pass the ball. I think the Bears defense is like the 6th fewest rushing attempts against it so far. Now they add Montez Sweat to that group as well, who for all of the accolades he's going to get as a pass rusher, bringing 6.5 sacks, the entire defensive line, kind of doubling the total of the entire defensive line for Chicago. The other thing that he brings you is another stout run defender and a really good run defender. So it's going to be a little bit back and forth, I think, in this one. I think the Saints are going to want to establish on the ground. I know the Bears are going to want to do the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a little bit more of an Alvin Kamara through the air game while it's a Jamal Williams on the ground game, if I'm being honest. I think that might be the way that the Saints go because they feel like they might be able to win a little bit more successfully up the interior as opposed to around the perimeter. And Alvin Kamara is a little bit more of your perimeter guy. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Alvin utilized a lot more maybe in the passing game in this one. And then guys like Kendre Miller, but specifically Jamal Williams getting the wealth of carries right up the middle or at least in between the tackles.
I think that's a good game plan for the Saints because if you watched that game last Sunday night between the Bears and the Chargers screamed the heck out of the Bears throughout the whole game. So, and the Saints, one of the best teams in the league when they go to the screen game with their running backs. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We're previewing Bears and Saints on this hashtag Football Friday. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you. We're hanging out with our buddy Ross Jackson. He's the host from Locked On Saints. Ross, let's focus in on your defense right now. Of course, you have veterans Cameron Jordan. And you have Marshawn Lattimore leading that secondary. But Carl Granderson leads your team in sacks with 5.5. Talk about him and his surprise start to the season.
Yeah, I mean, the contract extension that New Orleans gave him, I think they gave him, if I remember correctly, it's a 4-year, $52 million deal. And it's looking like the right choice. It's looking like it's working out. That was right before the Green Bay game that they gave him that extension. I remember walking through a park in Milwaukee when the news broke, and I had to do like a quick video from the park and everything like that. But it's paid off for him. And the thing that's really great about Carl Granderson, who is also an undrafted guy, much like Rashid Shaheed, and much like Rashid Shaheed, I think a lot of people are going to talk about Carl from the perspective of what he can do as a pass rusher. But I think the reason that the Saints really like him is what he can do in the run game too. He was the team's best run defender last year, just barely graded out on top of Cam Jordan, who's been, a stout run defender his entire career so far. And so I think that the compliment that you get with both of those guys, Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson, is that you get 2 guys that can win their one-on-ones. You get 2 guys that can be effective pass rushers, and you get 2 guys that can help you in the run game. But the thing that you really highlight about Carl Granderson is that when he gets to the quarterback, he's not just sacking the quarterback. He's able to affect the ball. He forces fumbles. He has those impact fumbles. That's something that's been missing from the New Orleans Saints defense for about as long as I can remember. Honestly, they don't do that a lot. And so having a guy like Carl Granderson who can have that level of bar jarring violence, if you will, that's something that becomes a big asset to this team that has a strong secondary that can take the ball away through the air, but doesn't have a lot of opportunity to be able to force those fumbles. And if he can get to the quarterback and continue to do that, then I think that that's a piece where he ends up having a big time impact.
Yeah, get the extra contract money. And of course, you end up, you end up being a Pro Bowler, so a potential Pro Bowler. So who knows? Someone who's been a Pro Bowl a couple of times, Tyrann Mathieu, of course, the Honey Badger, the veteran safety. Came back home a couple years ago, played at LSU, won a national championship. Has not been the most productive. You could probably say yes. He's 31, has had some injuries. So, do you think he could probably have to make a name for himself in this game?
It's funny. He really is kind of the most consistently productive player in the secondary. You look at last year, he was one of the only 2 guys with multiple interceptions. The issue was that the entire defense didn't force turnovers. This year, he's the guy with the pick 6 on the roster. The only player with multiple interceptions so far is Paulson Adebo. But what Tyrann Mathieu does bring, if it's not something that's being registered as like productivity or on a stat sheet, is that he brings the ability to help get that defense set. I think that that's where he ends up having a big impact. Him and Demario Davis are guys that end up helping these players get to where they need to be over on the defensive side of the football, both before the snap and even sometimes as the ball is being snapped. If you watch back to the one of the big plays that Paulson Adebo made in the flats last week, Demario Davis is actually signaling to him as the ball is being snapped. That's the kind of stuff that you see from Tyrann Mathieu as well. So I think that you can look at kind of the stats upon where he's there, which he does well. I mean, he was at the top of his career in terms of tackles last year. He's performing well in that category this year. Cleaned up some of the missed tackle issues, stuff like that. But really, I think the other thing that nobody really knows, because we're not on the football field with him, right, is his communication, his ability to get the defense set. I think that's a big thing that ends up having a massive impact for New Orleans to make sure that that defense is executing well and in the right places where they need to be.
Let's go back to the offense and talk about your starting quarterback, Derek Carr. After a slow start to the season, looks like he's picked it up. You mentioned the performance against Indianapolis last week with that big outburst of points with that win on the road. How confident are you that Mr. Carr can lead the Saints team to the playoffs? You think he can keep this up?
Yeah, I've always been pretty confident in Derek Carr to lead this team, but the playoff conversation and the playoff question comes down to the entire team, not just him. But I don't think that he is the player, or he as the quarterback ends up presenting an obstacle for getting to the playoffs, if that makes sense. I think that he helped to kind of elevate their opportunity to get to the playoffs. But like, they're in a horrific division. They've got a really super easy schedule moving forward. And because a lot of that is playing games within their division and all that. So I think they have a chance to get to the playoffs just kind of as a team and because of the environment that's set forth for them. But I will say that I think that Derek Carr maximizes their ability to get there when he's playing well. And it's very clear when he is. It's very clear when he isn't. It's very clear when there's miscommunication. It's very clear when all that stuff is there. And so I think that when you see the execution that you saw against Indianapolis, there's still some stuff to be desired there. Hopefully they're able to continue to take a step forward here against Chicago this weekend. But this gives them an opportunity to be able to prove that. So I would say that, there are a handful, maybe, of elite quarterbacks in the NFL. Barring those guys, I think the Saints have their best chance right now with Derek Carr to get to the playoffs with what's set out in front of them.
Yeah, Sid kind of stole my question because that NFC South isn't really not much to write home about.
Yeah.
Tampa's had their struggles lately. Atlanta's up and down. The Saints are kind of in the same situation. So outside Carolina, we'll leave them out of it. But who do you think has the edge as we get closer and we're like halfway through the season?
Well, as of right now, the New Orleans Saints are the only ones that didn't have some type of at least conversation around who's going to be the quarterback going into the season, or hasn't had any of that conversation so far during the season. And I think that gives them a little bit of a leg up. We're watching Atlanta change their quarterback. We're watching, we watched Tampa Bay kind of do the will they, won't they with Baker Mayfield the entire season. And then, Carolina isn't really a part of that conversation, but they have the rookie quarterback, all those other things. And so for me, New Orleans is the only one that comes in with consistent quarterback play so far. And I will say that for the majority of the season so far, Baker Mayfield's been the best quarterback in this division. And that hasn't been enough for them to win games. Meanwhile, when Derek Carr has been the best quarterback for this team, they're winning those games. And so I think that that's kind of the delineating factor for me, is that you have a little bit of continuity. Even though Derek Carr is a first-year starter with the New Orleans Saints, he's been with Dennis Allen before. Dennis Allen drafted him. They have a lot of trust. They have a lot of good communication between the two of them. And I think that kind of gives them the edge. But I don't know that it's for sure is the thing. Like there's enough about this division to say that none of the four teams necessarily wanted to win it from what it looked like early on in the season, or from what it looked like last year, right? Everybody was just kind of like, no, I think we're good. We just want to go home, all those stuff. But I think that when you're there and you're kind of like looking at what this team has, I think the New Orleans Saints have the edge because they have the players that don't want to go home. They have the players that want to be there in the playoffs, and they have the players that have the talent to be able to get them there. They've just underperformed as a unit, right? Whether it be personnel wise, coaching wise, play calling wise, whatever. They've underperformed the talent and potential that they have. We saw that maybe start to curb a little bit against the Indianapolis Colts. Can they continue to prove that that's the case moving forward?
We're heading down the home stretch with our guy Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast. He's hanging out with us here on the hashtag Football Friday version of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Kennan here with you. Ross, there was a lot of transactions earlier in the week this past Tuesday on Halloween for trade deadline day. What moves surprised you, and what team or teams you thought they was going to make a move that didn't make a move in your opinion?
I don't know about a team that I thought might make a move that didn't. I think maybe, looking at Baltimore and maybe looking at their running back situation and stuff like that, that maybe that's a spot where that would have made sense. Miami maybe could have gotten in that conversation as well. But I mean, what running backs were available, what running backs would have moved, we don't know, right? There was some like chatter about Ezekiel Elliott out of New England. That Jonathan Taylor situation's pretty much settled at this point. There were a couple other names that had popped up, but for the most part, those were really the only ones that I kind of was going in and looking at. Chicago, I figured would land either Montez Sweat or Chase Young. I was hoping for them that they would land Montez Sweat, get the more consistently productive player. I was glad to see that happened. I was surprised that Chase Young ended up with San Francisco, as if San Francisco just needed more. I thought so for me, like that was the big one that I was kind of looking at was, okay, that was a bit of a surprise for me, but that's an interesting one. I love that they only gave up a third to get Chase, because if Chase has a good season with them, he goes and he signs somewhere else. Eventually San Francisco gets a third-round compensatory pick back probably for him because of the position that he plays, all those things. So, and it puts him in a scheme that makes a lot of sense for him, that kind of wide nine pass rusher, puts him opposite his collegiate teammate, Nick Bosa. I guess the other move that I was curious to see was going to happen was whether or not Philly was going to make a move. They made that move for Kevin Byard for a safety, but I was curious if they were going to go for another corner, and they didn't do that, even though maybe some of those conversations happened. And, Rasul Douglas got moved and all these other things over to Buffalo. But that, I think probably the most surprising one was the destination for Chase Young, not necessarily that Chase Young got moved. I kind of anticipated that both those guys were going to be up out of there. The one that made the most sense for me was Montez, and then maybe the most surprising thing that didn't happen was, either of those running backs to Miami or Baltimore, or Philly adding on to their corner spot.
Do you expect the Saints to make any moves?
No. It didn't make any sense for them to do it. A lot of times when you see these trade deadline moves, it's a lot of either, small moves for day 3 picks, which the Saints didn't really have a need for a small move at all, or sizable moves tend to go for round 3, round 4, like day 2 selections. And the Saints' only day 2 selection is the Denver Broncos second round pick, which is shaping up to be a really, really good second round pick. And so there would be no reason for them to rush to move off of that. So for instance, it was that Broncos pick isn't projected to be as good as the Bears pick for a Montez Sweat. It would have been too high to compete with, to be willing to throw it out there to compete for Chase Young, with San Francisco moving their third round pick, which is projected for like the 80s and all that. While I believe that Montez Sweat deserves to be moved for a higher pick, the Saints wouldn't have had that than Chase Young. They didn't have that to compete with Chicago. And so none of that happened. There were some rumors, mostly just like Twitter aggregators getting their engagement and stuff like that around Jameis Winston. None of that was going to happen. And so it didn't seem like New Orleans was going to be making any moves. The only one that they really talked about was with the Raiders, a potential move for Hunter Renfrow. But because of how restrictive Hunter Renfrow's contract is, I don't blame them for not making that move when he's probably going to be a free agent this coming off season, and you can use Derek Carr to recruit him to come and sign here.
Last question from me, Ross. Of course, the NFC, the picture is now changing with San Francisco on their current losing streak. Of course, Seattle Seahawks is leading that NFC West division. Of course, here in the NFC North, Detroit is running away with it like most people thought they would. And, of course, in the NFC East, you have Dallas and Philadelphia. Philadelphia leading that division there. Where do you see the NFC, who's going to be the NFC winner at the end of the regular season before the playoffs?
Yeah, it should be the New Orleans Saints. And if not, there's going to be some major conversations here over the course of the offseason, because effectively, in order for the New Orleans Saints to not be that team, it means that they're losing games down the stretch that they have no business losing. They're a talented roster. They're a talented team. They've proven that by simplifying their playbook, not necessarily by simplifying the scheme, but just by limiting the number of potential play calls for any given situation, that they can be a lot more of a productive and efficient team. Makes sense. Instead of having 50 plays to call that you could potentially pick from, having 25, you're more likely to pick a banger in that situation, right? You go with what you know best. And so, they've got everything that they need to be that team. And so the New Orleans Saints should be that team. If they're not, then I imagine it would probably be, it's obviously going to be either Atlanta or Tampa, but I don't know which one of them it's going to be. And so it should be New Orleans. And if not, there's going to be a lot of entertaining conversations going on over the course of this offseason.
It might make things interesting in the NFC South, no doubt about it. Ross, again, thank you so much for joining us as always. Where people can find you, all your podcasts and all the other great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No, not a problem at all. I appreciate y'all having me on, and I thank you very much for inviting me back. You can find the Locked On Saints podcast free and available wherever you get podcasts or on YouTube as well. Just search Locked On Saints. You can find all the written work over at Saints News Network. That's Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation site covering the New Orleans Saints. You can find that at saints.media. You can find it all in one place on your favorite social media as well, at Ross Jackson Nola and Noelle.
All right, Ross, we appreciate it as always. You continue to keep up the great work. And when the Saints make the playoffs, we'd love to have you back on this program. And we will save you the aggravation. I know you're going to pick the Saints to kick the Bears behind. So I
wouldn't say kick their behind. I wouldn't say kick their behind. I'm taking them to win, but I think it's going to be a little bit closer than people expect.
Okay, it should be fun from down there in the NOLA, as the kids would say. Ross, as always, we appreciate it. You keep up the great work. Enjoy the game. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Thanks, y'all. Take care. Stay safe, and I'll see y'all soon.
All
right. Take care.
All right, that was Ross Jackson from the Locked On Saints. Of course, you can catch this podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube and what have you. So, say we got our other girl, Miss Christine Manika, waiting from KXRB, waiting in the wings. We're going to talk some Week 9 NFL pick'ems and a very special anniversary for all you Cubs fans. We'll talk more about that. And, of course, your World Series champion has been crowned as well. A lot to do still. Second Seed Sports on Sports of Chicago. Our picks and more coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
All right, welcome back to Second City Sports House, Sports Hill Chicago. You can follow me at Keita McGee on the Twitter, X at Keita Score again, the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sydney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. We have less than a half hour left of this extravaganza. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us as we head into our Week 9 NFL picks? You can hit up Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section, and Keno will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid, we waited, long enough. She's been waiting long enough for our girl, our friend, your friend. She's awesome. The one
she's coming out full speed ahead.
Yes, she's coming right at you, Sid. So here's Miss Christine, the Queen back from KXRB. What's up, Christine?
Yay!
How are you?
Doing good. You did pretty well with your picks. Let me see if I can get the stats up here for you. You did look, I had you had 12, I had 10, and Sid also had 10. You gained a game on Sid, so you're only 2 games back now. So look, Sid, she's coming at you.
Yeah, she's finally learning some lessons, but it's still a long way to go. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
All right. Well, look, that is true. We'll run halfway through the season. So, let's get right to these picks. Of course, the Broncos, the Lions, and the Jaguars and the 49ers are all on bye, so adjust your fantasy leagues accordingly.
Sean, you too for this week.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, I know. Me too. Right? I can have the 49ers defense. First, we go over.
Maybe it's a good thing because they stunk it up for me the last couple of weeks.
I know they've killed me. But let's go to Dusseldorf, Germany. I think they're playing where the Ryan Flyer. Remember the old Ryan Flyer from the NFL Europe guys? He used to play. Interesting that they played this game there, but I'm sure there's a reason for it. This will be on NFL Network, folks, so don't worry. Dolphins and Chiefs. Sid, you start this one for us.
Kansas City's favored by 1.5, which means it's at a pick 'em. Miami should, and I say should, win this game, but something in me tells me to go with logic here. Patrick Mahomes didn't have a great game last week. Flu or no flu, he's going to get it together over there. And Travis Kelce is going to have a monster game. He didn't have it last week, and I think Kansas City is going to have a much better performance as far as running the football. I'm going with Kansas City here in the close one. Miami is the better team on paper, but Kansas City has that championship DNA in them, so I'm going with Kansas City. Remember, Miami on the road against better teams this year, 0-2.
That is true. Christine?
I'm going with the Dolphins on this one, and that's because they got to Germany before Kansas City did, and that's going to be an advantage, I think, in the long run. I think they got there to Germany about a day and a half, maybe 2 days before Kansas City did, and in the end, I think that's really going to play to their advantage. And when it comes to flying in terms of proximity, technically Florida, Miami, it is closer to get to Germany than it is from Kansas City. So I'm looking at it in that perspective too. And Tyreek Hill, he's ready to go after his team in a big way, especially on the international stage like this one. So I'm going with the Dolphins here.
I'm with you, Christine. I'm picking the Dolphins as well for that reason. I know Hill's been, circling this game in his e-calendar for, I'm sure, since the schedule came out. So, and the Chiefs have had their struggles lately. Don't know if Taylor Swift's going to be at this game. We'll see, but I don't know. I don't know if she'll be able to make it to Germany. I think she has other commitments, but yeah. They've had their struggles lately. We'll see if, Pat Mahomes, whether or not it was the flu or could be struggling. We'll see. But this should be a fun game, though, nonetheless. Could be an AFC playoff preview, but we'll see. Christine, you start this one here. The battle of 4 and 4. You got the Vikings and the Falcons.
This week is just really tough to pick considering where all the teams are right now in the NFL. This game for me was really tough. Kirk Cousins is lucky that he went down when he did, because after seeing Hall play for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, I know those Vikings fans were sweating just watching him play, and it felt like probably a whole quarter for them. But now they got Josh Dobbs. I know he probably won't start this week or let alone play this week. And now for the Falcons, they have Heineke starting for them. So they got a little bit of an interesting situation in regards to their quarterback position. And both teams, you don't know what you're going to get with them. Now that I think Hall has had a little bit more time, there's a little bit more of a veteran presence with the Vikings than even before Kirk Cousins had his surgery this week. He stayed at the practice facility. He was there up until the day he had his surgery, working with the team and working with Hall, presumably to get him up to speed in regards to the office and just how the line works together and whatnot. So I think it's going to be a close one. I have a little bit more confidence in the Vikings, though. They can still do Kirk Cousins things without Kirk Cousins being there, but I still have confidence in them.
I'm going with the Falcons here only because they're the home team. They are favored by 3.5 points. I think Taylor Heineke, who has had experience before with the Washington football team, now the Commanders. He's been there before. I think he's going to bring some stabilization to that Falcons offense. They got to get the ball. For the Falcons, they got to get the ball rolling with some consistency with a rookie running back, Bijan Robinson. He's been disappearing that over the last few weeks. I know he got his first career rushing touchdown last week in their loss at Tennessee. But outside of that, he's been a no-show for the last month. So they need to get the ball rolling with him. So I'm going with the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you, Christine. I'm going to say Minnesota too, just because I think Hall, with the weeks worth of practice, he's had Kirk Cousins kind of helping him, sort of like long distance. I think the Falcons, I don't know what Falcons team I'm going to get. Am I going to get the Falcons team from a couple of weeks back, or that beat the Texans, or I'm going to get the Falcons team from last week? I just don't know which team I'm going to get. So, who knows? But yeah, I'm picking the Vikings here. Now, CBS, first game for CBS. Of course, Fox has a doubleheader this week, but the Seahawks and the Ravens, an intriguing one here, Sid. Start this one for us, please.
Well, the Ravens are 6-2. The Seahawks, who are currently leaders in the NFC West, have a 5-2 record. I know the Seahawks defeated the Browns last week. Baltimore continues to roll. Baltimore is favored by 6 points. I think it's going to be closer than what people expect. I think Seattle is going to go 0-2 in their trips to the East Coast this year. Give me Baltimore.
I'm picking, in the Battle of the Birds, I'm picking the Ravens up for this one, too.
Yeah, I'm picking.
Do we have a special effect for that?
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I mean, we saw what happened the last time a couple weeks back when the Seahawks played, in the East Coast. It didn't work out very well for them. So yeah, I'm picking the Ravens. The news story might, kill them. So, but it should be a fun game though. I think it'll be close though. I think. Our buddies Rotiers will have this game in Cleveland. You got the Cardinals and the Browns. Deshaun Watson looks like he's going to be back starting.
Yep.
I'll pick the Browns. I mean, I know Kyler Murray looks like he is going to start. It's going to be his first game in like almost a year, but I think the Browns. I'll go with logic here. I'll take the Browns.
See, that's the thing. We said that Kyler Murray was going to start last week. Is this going to be the week? We don't know what's really happening right now with him. So he could start this week, but then again, he could start in week 10 too. We just don't know. So because of that, I'm going to go with the sure choice with what you said, Lakina, and go with the Browns. Deshaun Watson is starting officially. Yeah.
Because of logic and because they're favored by 10 points at home, I'm going with Cleveland. And plus, they have the better defense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A good one here, I guess, in Green Bay. It will depend on how you look at it. You got the Rams and the Packers. Sid, you start this one.
For those of you in the Chicagoland area, you'll get this game opposite of the Bears game on CBS, as Lakina said, as part of the Fox NFL Sunday doubleheader. The Rams are 3-5. The Packers are 2-5. Of course, the Packers got beat down by the Vikings last week at home. Well, Dallas beat that tail of the Rams last week and perhaps sent down Matthew Stafford for a while. So I don't think Matthew Stafford's going to play. And I think just for that alone, I'm going with the Packers. I made the mistake of picking them last week. They couldn't score within the red zone. Jordan Love is just not ready, even though he's done some things here and there. But this probably will be closer to a gimme game that the Packers have had all season long outside of week 1 against Chicago, but that's a whole nother issue. But I'm going with the Packers here.
Packers. I'm going to keep it short and sweet.
Wow, I'm gonna go with the Rams here. It's just not the same Packers team than what we're all used to me. So I'm gonna go with the Rams.
All right. Well,
Packers are favored by 3 points in Lambeau.
Right. So it is a Oh yeah. I'll say yeah. So it is a pick 'em. So
yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, look, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams somehow pull it off. I mean, I wouldn't. We've seen weirder things happen this season. Interesting one here, I guess, about the 3 and 4s. You got the Bucks and the Texans. I'll start this one. I know that both these teams are coming off losses. The Texans, like the defense, we know CJ Stroud's kind of falling back to earth a little bit. The Bucks as well. This is really a toss-up game, but I guess I'll pick the Texans only because they're at home. I guess no other logic. I guess.
I'm the same way. There's really no logic behind it with the Texans. I'm going with the Texans too. The Bucks were doing better than what anybody anticipated them doing this year. I'll give them that, but I think the Texans should get their stride back with this game.
I'm going with Houston as well because of logic in that they're at home. They are 3-point favorites at home.
Okay, so that's interesting. You got the Commanders and the Patriots, 3 and 5 and 2 and 6. The Commanders, their main front 4 guys are gone, of course. Sweat now with the Bears and Young now with the 49ers. The Patriots, they're up and down too. Again, no other logic. I'm picking the Patriots only because they're at home. I don't know why, but that's the only logic. There's no logic. It's just basic, that they're at home. They're hosting the game. I don't know.
Yep. Short and sweet. Yep, same thing. Patriots, home game, short and sweet.
I'm going with New England here. They are favored by 2.5 points. I know they looked bad in that second half and that loss last week down in Miami. Of course, Washington almost pulled off the upset at home against Philadelphia. You kind of figured that if they didn't win that game, if they won that game, then you wouldn't have seen as many changes to their roster. But they lost a heartbreak, and you saw the changes that we just mentioned a moment ago. So I'm going with New England here.
I told you these picks are difficult. This is not an easy week.
No, it's no.
This has been a crazy year.
That too, and it's gonna get a little bit crazier too. We got the Panthers coming out their first win of the season as they host Indy. Sid, you start this one in the first of the 3 o'clock games.
Oh, these 3 o'clock games, call me crazy, are garbage, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Well, we'll get to all that later.
You only got 3. Never mind. Let me do what Lakina says and pick this game. The Panthers are 2.5 point underdogs at home. I know the Colts lost a tough one at home last week to the Saints. The Panthers, they won their first game last week against the Houston Texans on the last-second field goal by Eddie Pinheiro, the former Chicago Bear kicker. But I think that luck runs out here. It's going to be an ugly, close game. You might get a Lakina McGee special, 17-13, 18-10 game. I'm going with the Colts and Gardner Minshew.
I'm going with the Panthers. It's one of those really ugly games. Don't look at me like that, Sid. This week's already
young lady.
I literally was going back and forth between these teams because they're obviously both rebuilding. You don't know what Jonathan Taylor is going to do because of the quarterback situation and what he's got going on personally. So it's really up in the air for both teams. So I think I'm just gonna go with the Panthers.
Good Lord. I'll go with the Colts just because I think they're just a little bit better than the Panthers. I mean, I just think that they might be coming off a high. They may have the momentum going in after getting their first win last week. I know the Colts have been up and down, but I think maybe just a little bit better. We'll see. But this could be one of those close ones too. Like I said, 9-6, like 7-6 or something. So it could be one of those ugly games. So take the under. Take the under. For those of you who are going to be gambling on this. Giants and Raiders on Fox. Good Lord. Jeez. Aiden O'Donnell will be starting for the Raiders. The Giants. I don't know what the hell's going on with the Giants. I know they
Daniel Jones again.
Yeah, right, exactly. Jesus. Again, no logic, but I'm picking the Raiders. I don't know why. I guess I don't know. They seem like look, Josh McDaniels is gone now. Antonio Pierce is there. Got a couple of Super Bowls. Gonna be facing the Giants' former team. I think you can see they're a little bit more relaxed now. If you see Devontae Adams, playing, ping pong and pickleball or whatever.
Yeah.
So for that, I'll say, team morale. I'll take the Raiders.
I'm picking the Raiders too. Crosby put out a hype video saying we need to fill Allegiant Stadium this weekend, and for whatever reason, they seem excited. So why not? Let's go with the Raiders.
I'm going with the Raiders too, and they're favored by only 2 points at home.
This is just an ugly week.
Yeah, I wonder what Vegas was thinking, giving a point to the New York Giants. Maybe they think that the Raiders would be overconfident. I don't know. But.
Maybe I don't know. I guess maybe that's their mindset. I who knows. Okay, well this should be a good one though. The America's Game of the Week on Fox. Chicago will get this game as well. Most of the nation, if not all the nation, well except for New York and Las Vegas will get this game. The Cowboys and the Eagles in the NFC East. Sid, you start this one.
Cowboys 5-2, the Philadelphia Eagles 7-1. The Cowboys, you think you got them figured out? You got them down. They always come back. Will this be the week for them to do it? I say not. Philadelphia, as I said, they'll take a small step back, but it looks like their offense is starting to come around a bit, especially with Jalen Hurts and with that running game. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, both their star wide receivers seem like they're back on track. But watch out for the Philadelphia's defense. Hassan Reddick, he was a threat last year. He's been a bigger threat this year for the linebacker position. I think the Cowboys will surprisingly keep this close, but I have Philadelphia win this game at home. Christine?
Yeah, look, here's the thing. When I look at both of these teams, it's been pretty cut and dry when it comes to the wins for the Cowboys. The Eagles, on the other hand, every one of those wins have not been easy for them. You mentioned it earlier when we were talking about the Commanders, Sid, that they almost had the upset against the Eagles. They have had too many turnovers, and Jalen Hurts has not been looking as strong as what he did last year. And when you look at Dak and his confidence and what he's been doing with the Cowboys this season, it just looks stronger and cleaner and crisper than what the Eagles have been doing this season. Not saying that they aren't a good team. They have been winning, but it's ugly winning. That's what I said last week too. So because it's a little bit cleaner and it's a little bit more straightforward, not as many turnovers as what the Eagles have been doing, I'm picking the Cowboys.
I wouldn't be surprised if Cowboys do pull this off, but I think, but that's why I'm picking the Eagles, because they are used to these kind of like, grinded out, down to the wire types. Look, it gets you kind of ready for the playoffs. So this will be a close one. This will, it might come down to who has the ball last, but I'm picking the Eagles. I just think that they're just a tad better. I trust their defense a little bit better too. So should be a fun one there. America's Game of the Week now.
Philadelphia's favored by 3 points even at home.
So basically it's a pick-up. So Vegas, they know something we don't, I guess. Sunday night here, better matchup than last Sunday, that's for sure. Bills and Bengals. I'll start this one. I know the Bengals are coming off a high. They've won 3 in a row. They won, against San Francisco on the road. The Bills, I think we'll see if Rasul Douglas, does end up playing, Sunday night. Call me crazy, but I think he'll give them that little bit of an up on the defense that they needed. The Bengals, I know they've been playing better lately. I know Jamar Chase has been, catching the ball like crazy, but I think, having Douglas there, if he does play, will slow him down a bit. So it'll be a close one, but I might regret this in the morning, but I'm picking the Bills.
All of a sudden, the Bengals are playing football. So, Joe Money, for the first time in a while, I'm picking you. I'm picking the Bengals this one.
And the mic drop to finish it off. Love it.
The mic drop. Love it.
Remember the regular season game between these two teams wasn't played last year due to the situation with DeMar Hamlin. With all due respect, NBC is going to run that storyline to the ground.
Yes.
Don't get mad at me. Get mad at NBC for doing it. I'll leave that. I'll leave that alone.
Yes, they will.
But this was the rematch from last year's playoffs. Of course, you saw Cincinnati and Joe Mixon, along with Joe Money, run the ball down the Buffalo Bills' throats up there in Western New York last year. I think that's going to give them a better edge this year. Cincinnati's favored by 2 points at home. I think it's going to be a real close game. It may come down to a last-second field goal. I'm going with Cincinnati in this one.
Should be a fun one there. Now, of course, Monday Nighter, Manning Cast on ESPN 2. So, yeah, it'll be ABC, ESPN. You got the Chargers and the Jets. The Jets, look, they've been playing very well. They've kind of been sneaky good, 4-3. The Chargers coming off that win against the Bears. Sorry about that. But I know, look, they'll have an extra day, so the travel thing, cross country won't be a problem. I think Herbert and the rest of Eckert and that defense for the Chargers, I think they're going to give Zach Wilson fits. But yeah, this will be a close one. But I'm picking the Chargers. So I say that with hesitancy, but I'm picking the Chargers. I'll pick the Chargers with a little bit more confidence.
See, it's funny that you say that because I'm picking the Jets, but I put a question mark by it. Because this game can honestly go either way just because, and I mentioned this last week too, the Jets have all the right tools because they were meant for Aaron Rodgers, not for Zach Wilson. So they got all the equipment with them. They are just still trying to figure out how to use it with Zach Wilson being the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, he's been more mobile within the last couple of weeks, and he's been making a lot of improvements quicker than what anybody has ever thought. They're saying he could come back maybe even sooner than what was anticipated. So could this be the last couple of weeks we see Zach Wilson? Who knows? But I think just because, again, the weapons are a little bit stronger right now for the Jets, I'm picking the Jets with hesitation.
I'm going with the Chargers here, even though the Jets have a better defense. They've been playing better lately defensively. But they got away with one last week in that terrible game against the New York Giants, their city rivals. And, of course, we all know what the Chargers they did against the Bears last week. Pardon my Arnold Schwarzenegger. But you mentioned it, Lakina. The travel will not be a problem for the San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles, as we call them on this show. So Justin Herbert and those guys will be ready. They're favored by 3.5 points. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets cover, but the Chargers should win this ball game. I'm going with LA.
All right. And last but certainly not least, you got the Bears and the Saints. Andrew Canlon, Matt Ryan, Tiki Barber. We'll have the call for you guys there on CBS. AJ Ross will be there as well on the sidelines. Can't forget about my girl AJ. But what do you guys think? I'll let you guys go first. We have Ross Jackson on with us a few minutes ago. For me, I think Montez Sweat. I don't know if he'll play this week, so I'm waiting for the new the injury report. But I think the Bears will keep it again. They'll cover, but I think they'll lose it. I think the Saints are kind of trying to find their groove. We'll see how Kamara does against that run defense for the Bears. It's actually been pretty good. I'm sure Carr will get his 4 or 5 touchdown passes, and I think that, like I said, I think the Bears will cover, but I think the Saints will win it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if anybody has Matt Nagy's phone number on speed dial. It'd be great if we can have him back anytime. Anytime. I'm not even kidding. We were talking about this today, and when you think about it, Matt Nagy in his first season was 12-4. Then by his second season, he was a good 500, 8-8. Eberflus right now is 5-20. It doesn't make sense to me what the heck is going on. It really doesn't. And this whole deal with Montez Sweat, while we do need more weapons on the defensive side, it's a double-edged sword. And I say that because he's a great player. He seriously is a great defensive player, but he's on the end of his contract. How do we know for sure that he's going to stay with the Chicago Bears? There's no guarantee with that. And we just gave up a second-round pick for him. We all saw what happened the last time that Bulls gave up a second-round pick. He's now in Miami. He didn't like being with Chicago. And he was giving all sorts of smack about the coaches, culture, whatever. So I think that move is just a little too late. I think Poles got a little too money happy, got a little too happy with the trade deadline button, as I like to call it. And so I don't think it's not going to make a difference this season. Why he did it, I don't know. And I even went back and forth on this game because I wasn't too upset with the game on Sunday night just because it was my first time actually seeing Tyson on television. A lot of the throws that he was doing, I turned and I looked at Chris and I said, Justin Fields would not have made that throw. So, like, I could honestly say a good portion of the throws and the moves that Tyson did, Fields would never think about doing any of those in a million years, doing those types of passes and throws. And I felt bad for Tyson in the first half because it was his O-line that gave him a lot of penalties that didn't even give the poor kid a chance to do anything and to show his stuff. So I really think there's something. I don't think he's the answer for Chicago, that's for sure. But I do think there's something in him that could potentially help at least save whatever is left of the season to have a little shining moment for this kid for sure. Because again, he's got a good arm, and I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. And again, he does a lot of plays that Fields would never do and hasn't done for his time being in Chicago so far. But it's going to be close. I am going to pick the Saints though.
Don't forget the Bears got rid of another assistant coach this week, the running backs coach due
That's
to.
true too. It's like it just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't.
It really doesn't.
And like I said before, we'll say it again. What they did with Alvin Williams, to now the ex-defensive coordinator. That story is going to come out when it's supposed to come out. We'll find out eventually what happened with him. So I'll leave it at that. But the Bears, we know those moves were made for next year, not necessary for this season. But for this game, I'm picking the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints are favored by 8 points on the road.
Yeah.
Christine, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say one more thing I'll say about Montez Sweat, that whole deal. That gives me a signal that Eberflus and Poles are staying. He wouldn't do a move like that internally or like something this bold if they didn't know that those two were staying on. That's just a nonverbal communication signal to me anyway. But anyway, yeah.
well, the Bears have now won in the Superdome. I'm not going to call it that corporate name since go way back to 1991.
I was in grade school.
Chrissy, you weren't even born yet. That's how long ago that was. You talk about
highlights on YouTube this weekend, Christine.
Yeah, it's right there, like October 26th, I think 1991. So yeah, like Ricky Jackson was on that team. Now Hall of Famer. Yeah, just
the late Sam Mills.
Sam Mills was on that on the defense. Yeah, so Lord, it's been a long time.
Swelling.
Yes. Oh Lord, there you go. Now I'm going to wave machine some of those names. Good Lord. Those are our picks for week 10 in the NFL. This has been Second Seed Sports on Chicago. Lakita McGee, Cindy Brown, our girl KXRB's Chrissy Manika for joining us as well as usual.
In their 63rd season. It's happened! The Texas Rangers win the World Series!
Oh, sorry. And that was from videos from the Big Fox Network. Of course, Joe Davis calling the Rangers win their first World Series in franchise history. They're 63 years, as he said. They were back then. They were the Washington Senators, believe it or not, for those first 12 years. Bruce Bochy was his fourth. Joins Sparky Anderson and Tony La Russa for winning World Series titles in both leagues. Corey Seager, joins Reggie Jackson, who now has 2 World Series MVPs. Marcus Semien gets his first ring. What do you guys think? Did you guys were able to catch the? Well, Christy, you were right on. They won in 5, so you were actually right about that. So, guys, what do you think about this past World Series?
Predictable for the most part.
Yeah, give Arizona credit, even though they ran out of gas. They had a very good year. As we talked about Lakina, they were playing with house money. And let's not forget, both these teams were wild card teams, and they won sweat their wild card series and come back faster to get to this point. But congratulations to the Texas Rangers. If you guys haven't noticed, I dug this out of the closet. I'm serious about this. This is Josh Hamilton jersey from when they lost the World Series back in 2011.
Yes.
Trust me, I barely can fit this thing, but I like the color. That's why I bought it. But the Rangers were the better team. And before Game 5 on Wednesday, the last 2 games before the games 3 and 4, they outscored the Arizona Diamondbacks in the first 3 innings, 13-0. So as we talked about Lakina, Arizona likes to get off to a hot start. The Texas Rangers took their playbook and reversed it on the last 2 games. Of course, Game 5, it culminated with them scoring in the last couple of innings. And as far as the White Sox are concerned, Christine, I know you agree with me on this. That should have happened here a couple of years ago. I'm not going to get on Tony La Russa and that we did that about 1,000 times. But as far as the former White Sox players that are on that team, congrats to Marcus Semien. Congrats to Dane Dunning.
Dane Dunning. I mean, come on now. I mean,
for Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn sitting on the couch, and Dane Dunning is a world champion. Go figure that out.
Go figure. Yeah, the baseball is crazy like that. Also, Chris Young, who helped put this team together, called Bruce Bochy, who, he said he was sitting on the couch. He came in and said, hey, you want to come back to manage, this team? I got this nice group of up-and-comers, little mixture of veterans. Look what happened. So now he's definitely a Hall of Famer now. So if there were any questions that he wouldn't be. But congrats to the Rangers. I know their party is still down there just outside Dallas. And now in contrast, unfortunately, the Rays for their about 11 million, that was about the clincher. Now, unlike
done it before. Here's the 0-1. This is going to be a tough play. The Cubs win the World Series. Bryant makes the play. It's over. And the Cubs have finally won it all. 8-7-10.
Now, again, thank you to Fox for that clip from 2016. That was when the Cubs beat the then Cleveland Indians in 7 to win the World Series there. In contrast, that got 40 million viewers for that clincher. Rain delayed by an hour. Jason Hare with his speech. I was watching it. Still nervous wreck. So I know. I got 2 White Sox friends here, but real quick, where were you guys when the Cubs clinched their World Series title?
I was in college.
Sid, what about you?
Of course, I was working the D and Davis show at the time. This is before I started working with you full time. So I was at home watching it just because I had to watch it because of the shows that I was working on. And for the Cubs, great for them, great for their fans. Welcome to the club now. They accomplished what they did without winning a World Series. They went 108 years, I think, officially without winning the title. So Joe Madden was on cloud 9, even though some of them in the organization still don't like him to this day, even though he did help them get to a World Series. He might not like the way that he did it, but they finally got it done and they reached the summit. It's just that, like many of those young teams that win it, you take things for granted and then things go downhill real fast. Now, they did get back to the NLCS that following year before losing to the Dodgers, but after that, they lost, I believe, in the wild card game to the Colorado Rockies, where the offense wet the bed. It was actually nowhere to be found. And then, of course, 2019, they didn't even make the playoffs at all.
Yeah, you appreciate that, and hopefully, both for both the Cubs and the Sox, hopefully they can, with all the moves they made, especially with the White Sox, they made a couple big hires in the front office this last few weeks. So we'll talk more. We'll talk more about that as when we have a little bit more time. But yeah, rest of the
I
Cubs.
wanted to ask Chris. Yeah, I wanted to ask
ahead.
Christine real quick. Of course, the Baltimore Orioles, champions of the AL East, they got swept by the now world champion Texas Rangers. Baltimore, Tampa, and not Tampa, Baltimore, Texas, and Arizona.
Texas, yeah.
Texas and Arizona. All three of them lost 100 games 2 years ago, and they reached the playoffs. Of course, now Texas is yeah. Is there hope for the Sox for the next 2 or 3 years to do the same thing? Forget about winning the World Series. At least get back to the playoffs.
Well, I hope so.
Right. I mean, look,
yeah,
it's good omen. It's gonna be a good omen. So, yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
On that note, you follow McKinney McGee on the Twitter, X, and Kids, we're getting the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Christine, where the lovely people can follow you on social media.
They can follow me at @Manika_KXRB.
And you still have the bird?
Yes.
Nice. You're lucky. Of course, you can catch Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday, right here on Sports of Chicago. Again, Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday, noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on Sports of Chicago on the Facebook and YouTube page.
And don't forget, you can follow Sports on Chicago on all social media platforms, so Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And give War Media a follow at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago live in the living color, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand on Roku TV.
Yes, anytime, anywhere. So enjoy all the sports. You've got some NBA, NHL, NFL, college, the college football, of course. Yeah, so, we're getting to the weeds here. We're in November now, and also college hoops is about to start, so make sure you guys check out those college hoops games as well. So stay warm out there. I know it's going to be a little bit warmer, around our area for the next few days. For Sid and Christine, I'm Lakia. This has been Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Excuse me, and we'll see you Monday. Sorry about that.
Go Bears, I guess. Holla!
All right.